Cowboy Bebop has some of the best villains in any show ever. And most of them are not those typical evil antagonists that just wants to bring chaos everywhere and destroy everything. They have their own reasons and motivations for doing their crimes, which is sometimes understandable and relatable. Like Asimov and Katerina, and Elisa and Rindt, two couples that have a similar situation, trying to move to another place to start over. It is actually pretty amazing how diverse these villains are. Some are eco-terrorists, others are bomb specialists, some are mobsters and space pirates, and there's even a hacker who uploaded his consciousness in the net, forming a cult. Out of all those villains, however, there are two that stood out the most for me because of their scary demeanor, unhinged personality when it comes to murder, and overall perfectly written character. Mad Pierrot, the highly trained killer with superhuman abilities and a childlike mental state, and Wen, an immortal trapped in a boy's body who has been kidnapping older men to keep his condition a secret. Those two villains interested me the most because they have many similarities. They were both experimented on because of their unique bodies, and that is why they hated the world. They have no sense of morality, so they comfortably resort to violence whenever necessary. Mad Pierrot in his dangerous and psychotic way, and Wen in his cold and calculating way. Also, they both differ from the majority of Cowboy Bebop villains because they are not after money, nor do they want to send a message with their crimes. Mad Pierrot's motivation for his killings were revenge at first. Now, he is finding pleasure in killing people. For the Immortal Wen, I think he is doing his crimes to stay hidden and survive. People lose their sense of morality when surviving is the only option. Both of them have interesting and horrific backgrounds that serve as plausible motivations on the actions and crimes that they do. Their stories made me understand them more and not just classify them as one-dimensional and downright evil villains. Now, Spike doesn't normally have trouble with the villains he faces because he can hold his own. Whether it be close combat, a shootout, or an all-out space battle using his ship. But these two villains are different than the typical criminals he faces, which is why he had to have more prep time or get creative to beat them. Spike could not beat Mad Pierrot in a shootout, however, because he is much too powerful, a well-trained and enhanced assassin. But he has one peculiar weakness: cats, due to the trauma he got when he was being experimented on. This weakness provided some help to Spike, and he managed to put a knife in him. What happened next was very surprising and interesting. Mad Pierrot started behaving like a child, crying and wincing in pain due to the wound that Spike managed to inflict. Jet was right when he said that he is like a child with superhuman fighting abilities. This is probably the first time in a long while that Mad Pierrot experienced pain, hence the extremely terrified reaction he displayed, crying how much the wound hurts while calling his mama. I felt bad for him. He has been experimented on all his life, knowing nothing but do what he was programmed to do, become an unstoppable killing machine. It doesn't justify all the murders he had done, but seeing him well on the ground made me pause for a moment and acknowledge the things he had to go through. That is the beauty of Cowboy Bebop. The villains are not simplified into being an evil person, and that is it. All of them have their own backgrounds that becomes the basis of their motivations to wreak havoc throughout the galaxy. Some stories are believable and relatable, while others are not. And even though the actions of those villains who have non-relatable stories are incredibly dangerous and not justifiable, it still conjures up feelings of empathy. That's what I felt for Mad Pierrot, and I am glad that Spike saved him, in a way. Spike could not beat Wen also because, as it turns out, he was an immortal, totally different from all the villains he faced. Wen is an interesting one because, unlike Mad Pierrot and the others, he performs his crimes in the most discreet way. The way he murders people is terrifying because there are no antics, only ruthlessness and efficiency, which is rare for Cowboy Bebop villains. In a way, I think he is even scarier than Mad Pierrot because he has full possession of his own mind. He has tricked people into making them believe that he is an innocent and harmless child, and then striking them when their guard is down. The worst part of this is that he has been kidnapping old men, rendering their minds useless, and then having them unwillingly pose as his father, manipulating people for years by putting an image of him being a young kid, nobody knowing that he's older than all of them. Wen's background is different from Mad Pierrot's because he had a normal life before he became immortal. And when the accident happened, his parents dying before his very eyes, realizing that he was the only one left, that changed him forever. I did not feel any empathy for him though, until the very last scene where Spike killed him using the gem-infused bullet. His mind was intact and he was conscious of all his actions, so the pity that I felt for Mad Pierrot was still greater. Even so, when he became old and was about to die, saying he felt light after feeling heavy for so long, that's when I felt a tinge of empathy for him. Here is a person who has lived beyond a single lifetime, fully aware that he can never die, but also that he can't grow up. He had to hide his appearance and immortality to everyone, just so he can continue existing. If his special abilities were known throughout the galaxy, he would be experimented on forever. So, when he finally realized that he was dying, that it was actually possible, he didn't fight it. Rather, he accepted it. That is probably the first time he felt truly relieved after so many decades of hiding. How he accepted his defeat is worthy of respect. He is undoubtedly one of the best villains in the show. But the most interesting similarities of these two villains for me were the way their episodes were written. It's almost like a noir, crime thriller where the mysterious criminal had an unforgettable entrance scene, and the protagonists spend all of their time throughout the episode to unravel the villain's background to find ways to beat them. Mad Pierrot's entrance is undoubtedly one of the best in the series, flying above a city at night, wearing a gentlemanly outfit while murdering a group of men, and facing off with Spike, almost killing him. Throughout the episode, he was shrouded in mystery, with Jet only learning a little information about him, such as his name and the myth surrounding him. The myth that whoever runs into him and sees his smile, dies. It was only when Ed finally hacked the ISSP network that they were able to know his background. But Spike being Spike, didn't wait for all of that and rushed out to meet him. Their face-off is one of the best in the series. There were lots of high-intensity action scenes followed with an empathetic ending. Mad Pierrot was certain that he can kill Spike because no one has escaped him before, but we all know what happened next. Wen did not really have an entrance, but his victims did, and it was a hell of an entrance at that. The mystery started when Spike received a gem from Giraffe, not yet realizing it was for the kid. Everyone thought that Giraffe was after his partner, Zebra, and that he was also there to save the kid. Then, the most interesting part of the episode happened when Spike was following Zebra and the kid. And at the same time, Faye and Jet were looking at a very old article where the kid still looked the same as he does now, and he was with someone else besides Zebra. This reveal is one of the best in the series due to its unexpectedness, and because of that twist, this episode has stuck with me ever since. I just love that the ambience of both episodes was completely different from the rest of the series, with Black Dog Serenade probably the only exception. Other than the memorable villains, the pacing, the dark cinematography, and the eerie music of both episodes were what made them so great. It's rare throughout the series for the villain to have the edge against Spike, as he is an accomplished bounty hunter. In saying that, the last similarity that I noticed about Mad Pierrot and Wen was that even though they had the upper hand against Spike, one being an almost invincible assassin and the other being an immortal, they both made the mistake of underestimating our hero, and that was their satisfying downfall. These two villains stood out to me because they were the scariest and most well-written ones in the series. Their episodes really did them justice. Of course, other villains were also well written, but none exuded the mysteriousness and dreadfulness of their villainy more than them.